in a few days, we're gonna head back to Arizona and have a Arizona birthday party and stuff. So, um,
Nice.
yeah, she likes fishing too. My daughter also likes fishing, and she
Cool.
likes bluegill. So,
Yeah.
I yeah, I try to get her into the archery, but she loves fishing. And I get it. Hunting is a little scary. But I
Yeah.
definitely took her out a little bit scouting for turkey, and by the time we were done, she didn't want to leave. She's like, "Oh, Dad, I found a
Yeah.
salamander and this and that." So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. That
Um,
was my daughter's first hunt too. It was turkey because like I'm not a turkey hunter. I'm an aspiring turkey hunter. And I originally decided to get into it for my kid because in the springtime I'm all about I'm bear hunting. Like that's what I'm all about, you know what I mean? So but I thought about it, I'm like turkey, man, that's like a real like potentially really fun hunt for a little kid. Especially if we set up a ground blind, she can do her thing in there. Like she doesn't have to worry about being still or anything like that. And so, yeah, so I kind of dove in, try to start learning about turkey hunting.
okay. How'd that go?
It was awesome. So I did not set up a blind. I have a pretty funny story about her and I think it was last year, the year
Okay.
before that, one of those. Um, so I went out and scouted this area in the morning. I hiked. I probably covered about 4 miles on two tracks, just hiking, looking for tracks and scat and stuff. Found some sign and ended up grabbing the kiddo, and I was like, okay, we'll go in the evening. We'll go in the evening to go into this area. So we're driving down the road. She's in the front seat, can't see over the dash because that's what we do when we're in the country. Um, and a bear steps out in front of me. And so I was like freaking out. I'm like, unbuckle, unbuckle, you know. Like, so she stands up in the front seat and she gets to see her first bear at like 50 yards crossing the road. The problem with that though was that the bear was going right into the area that I was planning on bringing her turkey hunting. And I thought about it and I was like, gosh dang it, I know they'll come to a turkey call. I don't want to scare her. So we went into just a new spot. Just went in probably like 100 yards off the road. Found coincidentally enough, found some turkey sign as I was walking up the hill. We sit down, we're out in the open. She's got Christmas pajamas on, sitting in a camping chair, eating snackies. Okay, and I'm out in the open. I'm on the ground, and I put my decoy down the way about 30 yards or so. And we had been calling for about 10 minutes about. And my daughter looks over at me and she goes, Daddy, this isn't working. And I'm like, just give it a couple more minutes. Okay. Like a lot of times the turkeys, they're not going to gobble in the evening, but they'll come in silent. So she sees I have a box call laying on the ground and she goes, Daddy, can I do that one? I'm like, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Go nuts. So she gets it and you know, she's like starts shaking it and going all go crazy with the with the box call. And I grab it from her and I'm putting it down, and then she turns to me and she goes, "Daddy, there's turkeys." And I was like, I thought she was messing with me because
Hmm.
all day long, like she'd been seeing crows and stuff, and she's like, "Oh, Daddy, it's a turkey." Blah blah blah. I'm like, I look down, dude. There's two toms coming right into the decoy, 35 yards away. I'm like, don't move. She's like right behind me. So she gets to see me like I come to full draw and I'm following this turkey up the hill and just I clipped him, man. They never stopped moving, you know what I mean? Tried to
Yeah.
judge him. I hit the bird and it ended up flying off. We go over there and find feathers, she ended up finding my arrow. It was like a really good learning experience for her because like she got to go through because I knew that I didn't kill that bird,
Yeah.
but I wanted to show her that hey, even though, you know, daddy knows that the bird's probably not dead, we have to go and do this. We have to go look for blood. We got to look for go try to look for the bird, blah blah blah. So she got to kind of see all that, and it was. But I did this epic backcountry bear hunt a couple weeks before that in Idaho.
Hmm.
Okay, and like killed a great bear, just absolutely gnarly. All right. The turkey hunt with my daughter, I felt more stoked about that I didn't even get the bird. Just because of that whole thing that happened. Like she got to see this thing like for the first time. She like we go back to camp and she gets out of the truck and she yells at mom. She's like, "Mom, I saw turkeys!" And she was just so pumped, you know what I mean? So like and then like after that trip, she told me, she was like, "Daddy, the best part about camping is turkey hunting." You know? So I'm like, heck yeah. So
That's awesome. That's the perfect story. It
yeah.
also, thanks for sharing that. That's a great way to lead into something I wanted to ask you about. You had mentioned before about like broadheads and their flight.
Mhm.
Um, so what broadhead were you using? Like, you don't have to tell me brand name, but was it fixed? Was it mechanical?
Oh, I don't mind it. It was an Evolution Outdoors Hide
Okay,
broadhead.
okay.
Flies like a dart. I have had phenomenal luck with those things. Going with field tips, as long as what I've found with those, I've used those for quite a few years now, and the company makes both hybrid heads and fixed blade heads.
Hmm.
And what I've found is that as long as I get a perfect bullet hole through paper with a fletched field tip, all right, I can take one of those broadheads and I can shoot that out 80 plus yards with my field tip and it will group with my field tip. So, and do it consistently too. I've never had, like, I've used some broadheads in the past where like, it's like, whoa, what the heck happened with that one? You know what I mean? And it just like goes off course a lot. I think I told you about that when we were shooting at the range, but, I've had really good luck with those heads though.
Awesome, awesome. Now I know I've mentioned this to other people, but um like when I had my first Tom, like right in front of me, only 10 yards. This was my first time actually shooting my broadhead, being a new hunter and a new
Mhm,
archer. And using my field points, I was, I had no
mhm.
problem. I had total confidence in my equipment. But then when I put on that fixed, it's like, what's happening? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so that comes from now that I've just dove into everything, since
Mhm.
that experience. So hard lesson, but good lesson. Um,
Absolutely.
so it definitely inspired me to start moving more towards mechanicals myself. And
Mhm.
so now what necessarily causes that? Now, is that the broadhead catching more wind, causing more drag? Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
So the way that works is when you put a fixed blade broadhead. Now before I go into this, there is nothing wrong with fixed blade broadheads. You can get fixed blade broadheads to fly just fine. Okay. If the bow is tuned properly, proper spined arrow, it's got to be just a good build, you know. And then you have to be consistent as a shooter. Okay, a lot of it comes down to you as well. If you're inconsistent on your grip, holding a bow, your fixed blade broadhead is going to fly differently from time to time. All right, so uh, even if you're doing something unorthodox in your form, as long as you can do it the same exact way every time, it's repeatable. That's what matters, and that's what you can work off of when you're trying to figure this stuff out. But the way that works is fixed blade broadhead blades on the front of an arrow is essentially vanes on the front of an arrow. So if your arrow is coming out of your bow slightly crooked, tail right, tail left, whatever, that is going to influence the blades on the front of the arrow are going to influence the arrow to plane in one direction or another. Okay, and that's why you get this difference in impact points between broadheads and field tips. All right. So my whole thing, everybody's got their own way that they do this, but my theory on this is that my philosophy is that you want a broadhead that is going to be the most forgiving in arrow flight. Okay, yes, it's got to cause damage, but to be completely honest, all of the broadheads out there, they're all sharp, they all kill animals. All of
Hmm.
them do. Do they fly consistently though? Are they forgiving? That's the thing that matters to me the most. I've played with a lot of different broadheads, and I've gone down, I've drinking several, glasses of Kool-Aid here and there, following trends and everything like that.
Hmm.
And what I've come to the foundation I've come to stand on all revolves around forgiveness and accuracy. And what I've the way one of the ways I've come to that is kind of following competition archery. We talked about this a little bit when we were shooting.
Yeah.
I honestly don't like I don't know all of the shooters, their profiles or anything like that, but competitive archers that I've heard talk on podcasts and stuff, I have never heard of one that prefers shooting a fixed blade broadhead.
You
I just
mentioned
haven't.
that.
Every single one of them seems to gravitate towards a mechanical. And in my opinion, it's like these dudes are getting paid to hit a penny, right? Like that's their job. I think maybe there's a little bit of value in listening to those guys. You know,
Yeah.
every one of them I know can get an arrow like a fixed blade broadhead to tune. I know that, but there's like this uncertainty every now and then, and I've experienced it multiple times with fixed blades, both in the field and on the range. And quite honestly, it's cost me some animals in the past. So I I like the hybrid head. That's my favorite head. I've had really good luck with it, and it hits what I'm looking at.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That brings me to another thing you had mentioned earlier too, which was you talked about how people are chasing that bone breaking forgiveness versus that accuracy and that flight forgiveness. Now, me, I
Mm,
would say, being a younger hunter, like new to the sport, and I had too been chasing that same thing. I'm like, okay, I need a fix that's gonna break bone for XYZ. And
yeah,
just like you mentioned, fixed are known to drop, and then mechanicals are known to be more field accurate. So, um, what's your take on that as far as, should you be taking those bone breaking shots, or should you be focusing on, as you said, like the correct shot?
yeah. So this is I'm going to be careful here before I say this. This is my opinion, okay? um, One thing that's always perplexed me when this conversation comes up with people is that when you're talking about broadheads, is they worry. It's almost like they're planning to hit the shoulder blade with the broadhead. And something that was told to me long ago at a local pro shop here in Arizona, trust these guys immensely. Um, I was having this conversation with them, and they're like, "You shouldn't be hitting the shoulder blade." And it's just like, you're right. Yeah, you shouldn't be hitting the shoulder blade. So I feel like, I mean, in my opinion, again, if you are aiming for the shoulder blade, I think you are flirting with disaster a little bit, and I don't think that that's personally fair to the animal. Um, just so you can say my broadhead went through the shoulder blade. You have far less room for error when you're aiming for a small shoulder blade versus aiming for middle of the lungs. Okay, so if we're talking, we bring this back to forgiveness, right?
Hmm.
I think like our job as a hunter is to make the quickest, cleanest, most ethical kill that we can, right? And I think the only reason that people are trying to hit the shoulder blade is because of themselves.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's how I feel about it. I as a bow hunter, I've always looked at the shoulder blade and been like, nope, that's a no zone. we're going to go over here. Because also, if we go over here, you have more room for error up, down, left, and right.
Hmm.
Whereas if you pinhole yourself in the golden triangle, as people talk about with the vitals, now you have this border. Okay. So if you can picture this, like the shoulder blades here, and then the front leg that goes boom and makes a V and comes back. So this is that golden triangle in that V. And it's like, yeah, if you smoke that spot, sure, that's a dead animal. Okay. But if you miss a little left, like you're not going to be in the vital, you're going to hit the bone. Okay. And if you go up, you're going to hit the shoulder blade. If you go down, you're going to hit the elbow. You know what I mean? So to me, I'm like, plus, like, I don't know, man. I'm a meat guy. Like, I like deer meat. I like the meat that I'm going out there and getting. Like, so if I shoot through the ribs, I'm damaging less meat. Just,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just less I got to cut off. So yeah, that's what and again, that's my opinion. Like, some people may disagree with me, but just how I think about it.
And just let me know if you want. We could cut that. I could chop it up. Just
No, I don't care. I
okay.
really don't care. I've written about that before. It's fine.
Okay. And also too that is also kind of like it's like an aha and a duh moment at the same time. Like you said, you went to the
Yeah.
shop and they're like, shouldn't be hitting bone. And then kind of when you told me that, I was like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like part of me understands your these like heavy duty fixed blades, right? It's an insurance policy. And in that regard, I understand it. That's fine. However, if you are intentionally, like I've heard guys say, I'm aiming for the shoulder. If you're intentionally doing that, I think that's wrong,
I hear you.
personally.
I hear you.
You can, by all means, if you want to shoot like a mega, fixed blade broadhead, do it. I don't care. But like I like going about it for the purpose of no, I am aiming for that shoulder. Like that's wrong, dude. It just like in my opinion, that's wrong. Because you're flirting with the animal's life. And the other thing about that whole thing is
Mhm.
I think when people are making broadhead selection choices, I think they are oftentimes worrying more about how they're going to mess up rather than how they're going to be successful. So it's like they're planning for a mistake. Okay. Because if you hit the shoulder blade, that's a mistake. Okay. Well, why don't we like, let's bring it back and let's focus on ultimate accuracy,
Mhm.
right? And try to plan for success rather than messing up. Messing up is going to happen. I understand that. I've done it lots of times. Okay. But it's not the goal. You know what I mean? So it's like, in my opinion, like I want to focus on the goal and be as accurate as possible and kill the animal as fast as possible.
Heck yeah, well said. I appreciate that. Good piece of advice. Being a new guide, I was kind of finding myself doing that too, chasing, okay, I need heavier, I need this, I need that. And,
Mhm.
along with, just considering, what's the best ethical thing for the animal, then you also run into, different problems when building up a setup, to do
Mhm.
that. So I definitely appreciate that. And, instantly the light bulb clicked and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the right stuff to be focusing on. Uh, Correct shot, accurate shot, clean shot. So I appreciate
That's
that.
right.
Heck yeah. So also too, so I see like you're passionate about the animal and the hunt and everything. I came across one of your videos, and you were just talking about that the hunt, all that, it's not for killing, and it's the feeling, it's living. Like, can you expand a little bit more about that? Because I think a lot of people get confused, um, especially when I'm like talking about my passion. I've been on a ton of hunts, haven't harvested, but
Hmm.
I've been on a ton
Hmm.
of hunts, you know, and a lot of times, especially new people, they'll be like, "Why are you doing that, dude?" You know, you
Yeah.
know, you know what I'm saying? So, can you just kind of explain more your passion for hunting and then especially bears?
Yeah. So my dad brought me up hunting. I went on my first hunt when I was 8. And I had never I had never seen a mountain before at that point. I lived in New York, in Queens, moved from New York, came over here, and it was just like like a different world, right? Like the only thing I knew of the West came from magazines that my dad kept in a gun box that he made. And so I would flip through the pages as a child looking at this. I mean, to me, like Narnia. You know what I mean? Like I had never seen anything like that before. Um, so when I went on my first hunt, man, like my dad, he took me out and, he showed me I still remember, uh, I'm 40 now, and I was 8 years old when this happened. I still remember what my first deer looked like when I saw the deer. And it was a coos deer, and I could see it right now hopping through the grass with his tail up, and that became kind of a regular thing for me, going out with my dad and him showing me animals and stuff. Um, and when I got older and I actually started hunting with him, hunting for me when I was younger was a kind of an annual thing. It was just kind of like, oh, in October, we went deer hunting together, me, my dad, and I, and sometimes my mom would come and everything, but it was always me and my dad. And I never remember as a kid thinking about the kill that much. I was more thinking about, oh, this is going to be really fun to go hang out with my dad for 6 days and cook on a fire, and we'll probably go trout fishing, and we're going to wake up really early. It's going to be so cold, and I'm not going to want to get out of my sleeping bag. And this is where I took my first sips of coffee in my life, and like all these like very uh, genuine memories for me were all built from hunting. And so, I mean, to be honest, like we were never successful when I was a kid. We were successful in Javelina one time. And I want to point out there that like we probably weren't successful because of me and my dad's selflessness for taking me with him and jeopardizing, if you will, his hunt in order for me to experience the hunt with him. Because I was moving all over the place. I was making noise. You know what I mean? I was a kid, right? But so I've always been very appreciative of that, and that's how I came to know hunting as a child. So when I grew up, in my early 20s, I was like, huh, you get to a certain age in life and you realize the world's a little bigger than you thought. Okay, because now all of a sudden it's like you have, you said you got your driver's license, and you're working, you have a job, you have some money, right? You can go and do things on your own. You don't have to ask permission from your parents, right, to go and do things. Like, so when I got in my early 20s, I was like, man, I think I want to like really dive into this hunting thing. I want to like really learn how to like not that my dad didn't teach me anything. He taught me tons of stuff in the field. But I had this like personal goal of like I want to get really good at this, right? And for some reason, the bear stuck out to me. Okay, and the very first black bear I ever saw was with my dad, and we were coming down, we were going home from a deer hunt, coming down the mountain, and there was a vehicle stopped in front of us. And the people were out and they had cameras and stuff like that. We're like, what the heck are they looking at? Blah. And sure enough, there was a big chocolate bear crossing the road, going up the really steep incline on the other side. So those people drove off, and my dad got out. Like he pulled up and he got out to get a closer look at the bear and stuff. And my little brother was in the back freaking out, like thinking my dad was going to get eaten by the bear. And I still see that bear, dude, like it was yesterday, and how it effortlessly like moved up that steep grade that stuck with me in my brain. And I was like, man, ever since then, I was like, man, I think I want to learn how to do the bear hunting thing. And it didn't help that we met a gentleman who is kind of like he's kind of like my bear hunting mentor. I grew up fishing a lot, so at the lake we met this guy, and he's just a gun ho outdoorsman, you know what I mean? And one of his things was bear hunting, and he always told me stories about bear hunting, and he showed me pictures of bears that he got and everything like that. And so that was the thing that I decided to dedicate myself to when I got to my early 20s and I started diving into hunting. So I didn't know anything about bear hunting. I was on forums on the internet trying to dig through old archived conversations on how to bear hunt in Arizona. Okay, I didn't have someone take me out and show me, So the very first, I remember I was going all over the place in Arizona, scouting every single week. Didn't have kids, right? I had all the time in the world. My wife was super cool. She was like, "Yeah, go, blah blah blah." So I was out all the time, sometimes multiple times a week, looking, scouting for bears and everything. And I found this area where I'm walking down this two track, and there's a big, huge rock the size of a BF Goodrich. All right. And it looked like it had just been moved.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, the books say that that's bear sign, right? Like that's what I was going off of. I didn't know, dude. So I saw that, and we saw a bunch of bucks on that trip too. I had a friend with me, so he was gonna mainly deer hunt, and I was gonna bear hunt with my rifle. And so we got up early opening morning. I'm walking in the dark, which is something at the time, as funny as it sounds, I was scared when I was walking through. I'm like, there's bears around. You know what I mean? Like it was the first time I ever really did that. And like bunnies were jumping around me, and I'm like heads on a swivel going back and forth. And I get out to this edge of this canyon, and my plan was to call, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna predator call for black bears. As funny as that sounds, my first time bear hunting. Um, so I start calling, and something starts charging at me from below, and I never got a look at what it was. But it was like it got my heart racing, you know what I mean? I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So my plan for the day was to go all along this canyon and call and hopefully see a bear, right? Well, as I'm doing that, I got swooped down on by a red tail hawk a couple times because he thought I was a rabbit, right? And then I had a fox following me the whole time. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I was by myself. My buddy was in another area. It was very peaceful, and I'm about to start making my way back to camp, and we have radios. Okay. And my buddy tells me, hey, I'm going to sit in this bowl here because we saw like 11 bucks walk through there the day before that. I'm like, okay, that kind of trapped me in this area. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit at this water tank here so I don't mess up his hunt. That's the only reason I did it. All right. I'm sitting at this water tank at 7:30 p.m., like as if it was a ghost. This giant black bear comes floating across the hill across from me at like 200 yards. And I was like, it was like one of those things where I didn't believe what I was looking at. I'm like, oh my goodness, let me grab my gun. Like I froze. So I grab my gun, I get it up, and this is when I learned about how God, this is when I learned about if you're in a tight area, keep your scope on low magnification. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because I brought that sucker up and I couldn't find that bear to save my life in the scope. So I cranked it all the way down, finally find the bear. By the time I do, he's diving into an oak thicket. So what do? I'm like, oh, I got this call with me. right? So I start wailing on the call, and sure enough, the bear starts coming right to me.
Mm.
However, at like they do, now I know this very well, but at the time I didn't. All right. He kind of circled a little bit to get my wind. All right. And sure enough, right when he hit my wind, he bounced out of there. And he goes and he dives into this canyon, and I radio my buddy. I'm like, hey, dude, I just saw a big bear. He's going into that canyon right by camp. He's like, I'm in that canyon. What like so he's so he didn't have a bear tag or anything. He starts like crawling up out of there, and he said he saw the bear, and he said the bear was like sliding down on his belly, just busting through brush, trying to get away from where I was because he winded me. And that was my first bear hunt, and that experience lit an immense flame under me. Okay, like to really, I was like, oh my gosh, I almost did it, right? Like, and for those that haven't like looked at bears out there, they are just different, man. Like it's different than seeing a deer. You know, deer, like don't get me wrong, I like looking at deer and elk and everything, pronghorn, they're beautiful animals. However, a bear, it's like I said, it's almost like he's floating across
Hmm.
this rocky face, and like you don't know, maybe he's gonna stand up on his back legs, maybe he's gonna climb a tree, maybe he's gonna go swimming. You know, like you don't know what he's gonna do. They're very, very interesting animals to watch. So that was kind of the catalyst for to learn more. Like, oh my gosh, there was this little morsel of positive reinforcement that I got, and the rest of the hunt got completely rained out to close out that, and we just ended up going home. Tent got flooded. It was a disaster. Um, and then so 2 years later, this would be 3 years in the making. I let me know if I'm rambling too, because I can talk for a long time.
Go at it, man.
Um, So I had been bear hunting for 3 years, and in that time, I found an area where I kept seeing on and off bears walking in and out of this area. I never got a shot at these bears, but I remember like one time I was in the area, I was hiking out with my wife, look up, we are scouting, there's big cinnamon walking into the area that I came out of. I'm like, huh. So I started like putting all this together, and after a few years of seeing that, I'm like, huh, I think they live in this nasty hole over here. I'm going to hunt there next year. So I ended up, it was the last day of season. I had a bear scouted out in a different unit. It ended up getting ran off with dogs, and I never saw it again. Hope those guys got the bear, but I didn't. Um, and last day of the season, I'm out there by myself, 7:30 in the morning. I look down off of this cliff edge, and there's a big chocolate walking beneath me at like 200 yards. And again, it was like, whoa, I did it, to like have this hesitance, and ended up shooting, hit the bear. The bear runs towards me down beneath, and I can hear him like, and he runs into it to thick stuff, and I don't see him again. And I'm like, I am shaken. You know what I mean? I could not believe what had just happened. So I call my dad. My dad comes out. We dive into this canyon and start tracking this bear. We get on blood right away. It looked like he took blood, like you just poured it across the bottom of the canyon. I'm like, oh my gosh, I did it. I did it, and we kept going, kept going, kept going. Well, eventually the blood petered out, and a hailstorm came in. We were out of water, like
Mm.
in a bad situation. You know what I mean? I'm like, we got to get out of here. Like it's just not safe. We got to get out of here. So we crawl up out of there. I go back home. The season's over now. Okay. And I'm like, I still didn't feel, I'm like, I went back out the next day to try to find the bear. Brought my buddy with me. We got back on blood right away. Okay. And we ended up finding this bed with wet blood in it. Okay. We were on our hands and knees crawling through I call them bear tunnels in the scrub oaks. These bears crawl through this oak brush, and there's like tunnels. and that's what they're crawling through. Well, I was on this bear's tracks and scat, and then we found a bed, and then past that bed we only found 2 pin drops of blood. I almost quit bear hunting that year, um, because we never found him, and I just like felt horrible, and as I should, right? Like if you hunt long enough, that stuff's gonna happen. That's you know, Mountain lions, they're not successful every time,
Mm.
like the best of us. So with that said, the best of us, it happens to the best of us, so I sat on it for a bit. I came back that following October and brought my brother, and it was almost like the same thing happened, except we had jackets on. And it was like bear walked out 7:30, shot the bear 200 yards. We saw 10 bears that morning in about an hour, and ended up going down in there, and we found the bear, and that was my very first bear. And the pack out getting that bear out of there, how we got out of there was we didn't know how to we were so new, we were dumb, man. We didn't know how to get around country. We were leapfrogging bear parts up this bluff. We're like tying backpacks on the ropes and pulling them up this cliff, and like, here's a bear leg here, like that's how we got out of this canyon. And then I got back to the truck. I was like, as smoked as I was, I'm like, that right there, I need to do that all the time. Like, and that right there, like, I know I said, that seeing that bear with my dad was kind of a catalyst, and it was in a sense. But that experience, I feel like that's what like made me a bear hunter, and like made me want to keep on doing it. So sorry to be long-winded, but it was like, it was kind of it was a progressive thing, and like ever since then, I've hunted bears every single year.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Like all the detail, like perfect. That's perfect. I appreciate it. I definitely hit a lot of good points there in your story about hunting and outdoorsmanship. And I know the feeling. Like I said, I've been on a quite a few hunts and mostly being invaded by turkeys. And
Yeah.
that same thing with the turkey, like very similar. Called the huge tom in, beer dragging on the ground, made a
Hmm.
shot, and I'm like, he stood there kind of whacking away at my decoy, and I'm like, well, I shot him once. I got to take him down. I don't want to just wound him.
Hmm.
But I was having that issue with those broadheads dropping like that. And the very last arrow I had was a decap arrow. And at this point, he's kind of walking. I guess he got tired of being smacked, and he's walking off. And I like, I'm aiming, and I'm like, I didn't even range this thing, man. And I just kind of got a good guess, followed him, and let it fly. But he had took like another step and just missed the head like that. So went out there, found feathers and a little bit of
Hmm.
blood, and I went around for like 2 hours. Like I had it on my app. I had a friend on the
Yeah.
phone. I'm like, man, like I hit him. He's like, yeah, no, I seen it on the video, and we're going back and forth about it. And he's like, oh, try that, try this, go this way. Found tracks
Hmm.
because it had just rained, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like I hear guys talking about this with like deer and stuff, but I never thought a
Yep.
turkey would, kind of give me that same experience. And just like you
Hmm.
said, like not recovering that animal and getting so close, getting the hit, seeing the feathers, seeing the tracks, and then like not recovering them, I just felt like crap. And
Yeah.
craziest part is that where I was hunting, it was public land, a little bit of private behind it, and it's basically just open fields. So open field behind me, open field to the right, just separated by these thickets. Um, and that's how I was able to hear him so good when I called him in. Like I heard him like maybe 100 yards away, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is happening! Like this is, I see this on YouTube. Like I never thought I'm okay. Let me focus,
Yeah.
you know." And right when I heard him, like maybe 20, 30 yards out, and I'm like, "Okay, I need to get ready. I gotta whatever I gotta do. I gotta get ready because he's really close." And then I boom, put on my little live camera, and that's when I heard like some little splish splash because it had rained the night before, and in that little thicket, there was a small little opening where there was a big puddle, right where I put my blind. And I knew that when I heard that splish splash, this bird was right here,
Hmm.
and then he crossed right in front of me, and I'm in between, like how you mentioned, like, is this actually happening? Or,
Yeah.
I was in between that and getting ready to, because I'm like, this is the closest a turkey has ever been in my life, next to my
Hmm.
blind with the window up, you know what I mean? And this is my chance. So yeah, just building on that, having that high, and then doing
Hmm.
the shot and not getting it and getting that low. I'm like, okay, that's when I went all the way down the rabbit hole. I'm like, okay, what's FOC? Okay, what's
Yeah, yeah,
stabilization? And that's what
yeah,
got me to just I went crazy. So if I had a wife, she'd hate me right now. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that. What got
Sure.
you to the bear hunting and everything. Um, and you came in pretty early. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate,
Oh,
this
you're
is
fine, dude.
yeah, this is like student teacher, so I'm just soaking up all the knowledge. I appreciate that. Um,
Sure.
so with bears, do you think they get appreciated as much as whitetail?
No, no, I really don't. I think black bears are highly, highly underrated, underutilized. Like in my opinion, they're some of the best game meat out there. Um, Black bear meat is a staple in my house. I've had many people tell me in videos, "Oh, you can't eat bear meat. Why'd you kill that animal?" Blah blah blah. It's like, dude, like you don't even know. Okay, like tell me you haven't eaten bear without telling me you haven't eaten bear. It's
Right.
just it's a phenomenal meat. Plus, the hide is beautiful. I've got hides, like got one right here, another one right here. There's one that I'm sitting on right now. There's another one on my floor, as a rug. I think they're beautiful. The other thing about bears, that, you know, is just has always been different is the experience of the bear hunt. Like,
Hmm.
look at the story I just told you about climbing up out of a canyon. I've never done anything like that for deer or elk or anything like that. And the reason being is because if you are getting on to bears where they live, all right, you are going into some Mordor like country. All right, you're going into some real nasty stuff. Okay, that's where they like. That's where they live. They live there because they don't want to be bothered. It's a security thing in my opinion. Plus, I think they offer these like micro ecosystems in these areas. Like the surrounding areas can be fairly dry, but down in these deep canyons, oftentimes water's pooled up down there.
Hmm.
Okay, and there's like, maybe there's a north face and a south face of this drainage, and the north face is dense and lush, with bedding area and shade, and then the south face is more open, and they can go up on these south faces when they wake up in the spring and eat grass, and then it can transition to berries in the bottoms of the canyons, right? And then, like it's just like there's certain canyons that bears can stay in their entire life and they never have to move. And in order to if you want to go get one, you're going in there.
Hmm.
On the off chance you get lucky and you find one rolling around in some flatter country, which you absolutely can, you could absolutely do that. One comes into a water tank or something when you're sitting there for deer in August. That can happen. That happens. Okay. But if you are targeting black bears, you are going into some nasty stuff. And that's something that became somewhat of addictive to me, was the experience. I've bear hunted in a couple different states now throughout the West. And, somewhere like Idaho, all right, like, dude, here in Arizona, like a big canyon is probably like 1,000 foot drop, right? Like an average big canyon in Arizona,
Hmm.
aside from the Grand Canyon. No one's hunting the Grand Canyon, though. You go to Idaho, you're you're looking at 3,000 foot mountains. Okay, not little 1,000 foot drop. You're going, you know what I mean? Like the few bears I've killed there in Idaho, like it's like this situation where we backpack in 5, 6 miles. You're going to do 2,500 vert doing that, right? Then from there, you know, oh, there's a bear. Cool. All right, let's go get him. All right, now you got to go up 1,200 feet, go across the top of the mountain, drop down over 2,000 feet to set up on him, shoot him, then go get him.
Yeah, that's
It's
rough.
like, it's like it's unbelievable. Like I one time I got back to camp, first bear I ever killed there. We got back to camp at 12:30 at night, and I like sat down. I'm like, why did I do this for fun? Do this for fun, just absolutely smoked, dude. My camera guy was like seeing things. He was like hallucinating.
Oh man.
It's just unbelievable. Like crazy dehydrated. Like luckily we had a bunch of water back at camp and stuff. But yeah, it's just like those things to me. Like I've been on a lot of deer hunts. Killed quite a few coos deer and stuff with my bow, but it's just like, and that's fun. I absolutely love that. Like January is one of my favorite times of year to go out there with a bow and hunt deer. But the bear thing, it's just like always an adventure every single time. It doesn't matter what state, like what time of the year, it's always an adventure. The bear I killed last year, dude, I shot him. I first I scouted him the week before the opener for October. I saw 4 bears that morning in about a minute. They were in the prickly pears, so they're pretty easy to see. Found this one big bear with a split in his right ear, so I could recognize him. So we get in there, we hike in, no one's there. Hike in opening morning, it's dark. I picked the bear up in the gray light, 40 yards from where I saw him a week ago. All right. I'm only about 25 minutes from my truck. Okay. Finally, I confirm. I see that the split is in his ear. I'm like, okay, that's him. Because I need to make sure I shoot the right bear because this canyon is a big send. Okay, like I don't want to be shooting the wrong bear. So boom, there's a split in the right ear. I shoot him. We get over there. It takes about an hour, not too bad, because we went down a real sketchy route. But there's no way we're gonna go up that with a bear on our back. So we get over there. Bear wasn't dead. Lifts his head up, shoot him with a 10 millimeter. He gets up again, runs down the hill. My buddy gives me my rifle. I shoot the bear again, 20 yards with my rifle. He goes rolling down the hill. Okay. I shot that bear initially at 7:30 in the morning. We got back to my truck at 10:30 at night. Okay. I was only 25 minutes from my truck. The pack out in total was over 6 miles
That's rough.
with weight.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't do that doesn't happen to me with deer. It just doesn't. I've had some gnarly deer pack outs in other states and everything, but yeah, the bears are always an adventure.
That's awesome. I so I'm going to school out in the east and they have a lot of black bears out here. Are there any
Mhm.
major differences when it comes to just hunting other than like you mentioned like the elevation is way different? Are there any other major differences when you're hunting black bears in different states?
Are you referring to west versus east?
Like west versus east, yeah.
So I'm not familiar. I've never hunted black bears in the East Coast. However, a black bear is a black bear. Okay, black bears are driven by their stomachs. Okay,
Mhm.
like that is the Achilles heel of the bear is their food. So if you can find the right food source given the time of year, you're probably going to find bears. The hard part about back east is that those forests are much more dense. So out here in Arizona and like in the West, Colorado, Idaho, like we glass for bears, because we're in big country, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like we can set up optics and look for miles around us for bears. In that country over there in the East Coast, man, I mean you have to be, if I were to do it, you'd have to be much more of a woodsman in order to do that. So you need to really like focus in on sign, find the scat. The scat will tell you what they're eating. Okay, like like I root around in bear scat all the time. All right, and you will see, oh, there's like here, like there's raspberries there, right? Oh, okay. Well, where are raspberries at? Now you have your next thing you got to go figure out, right? Like, and that's the process right there. Like, and like once you find one bear, okay, and this you don't even have to see them. Okay, if you just find like a fresh pile of scat, that bear's in feed, and you know you find the food and stuff like that. That bear's in that area. The only reason that bear's going to leave that area is if another bear kicks him out of there, which fine, there's another bear. But whenever I've found one bear, I've found more than one bear, and the
Hmm.
reason being is because that bear is there for a reason. They don't really end up in areas on accident unless it's at a hotel or diving into a dumpster. And even in that case, that's not an accident. He's at that dumpster for a reason. Okay.
Right, right.
Um, they're intentional about where they are, so because it's a resource that attracts other bears. So anytime I've ever been like, I see one bear, I do not ever assume that that's the only bear in the area. I actually am encouraged that there's more in the
Hmm.
area, especially if you are hunting an arid environment and maybe you see the bear taking a swim. Oh, well, in an arid place, bear hitting that water, I absolutely guarantee you that there are more bears hitting that water.
Hmm.
I used to run trail cameras here a lot before they were banned for the use of hunting. And I have never put a camera on a piece of water and only gotten one bear on there. It's always like there's eight that just kind of cycle through, especially when it gets really hot, May, June, July. So all that to say, you need to be a woodsman. You need to learn how wind and thermals work. I killed a bear one time based on imprints and pine needles. Okay, like you pay attention to this stuff. I talk about this a lot in videos. Like right now, past like couple months, I've been doing scouting videos for bears throughout my time scouting and kind of taking you guys along for the ride on my YouTube channel, showing you like what I'm finding and why I'm interested in this and why I'm not interested in that. And what there's a lot of bear sign that people just walk right past and they don't know it's bear sign,
Hmm.
and that those like subtle imprints and pine needles. I got to show that in the first video that I did, the first trip we did back in May. And sure enough, like going down the trail, all these like subtle imprints. Okay, yeah, call me on it. And we keep going. Now there's a big pile of scat. Oh, see, told you. You know what I mean? Like that little stuff like that. It flies under the radar. So to link this back to the East Coast, that's the stuff you would want to be paying attention to. Like what is bear sign, right? Like like be a student of the mountains, and figure out like, you know, like they'll flip rocks to eat bugs underneath them. So you might find a hill that has like a line of rocks all flipped over, and you can tell they're flipped over because you can see where the rock was, right? There's a hole there now, right? There's a wet side of the rock that's like darker. That's the spot that was underneath the ground, right? But the bear flipped it over to eat termites or something like that, right? Um, so I that's what I would be doing. I'd be finding the food. I'd be fine. I'd be like here in Arizona, I'm not too sure about the East Coast, but here like in the West, they use bottoms of drainage as like roadways, right? So if you had like ravines in the east, like where you're hunting in the east, I'd be walking those bottoms because that's usually where I find sign because they're up and down, up and down. They walk in the bottoms of the drainages.
Hmm.
So food, water, look for bear sign, like the scat, go in the scat, root around in there, and that's often going to tell you what they're eating. And don't disregard it just because it might be old. That's another thing. Like if I'm hunting, say I'm hunting in January, I'm deer hunting, come across an old pile of bear scat. I'll root around in that thing. I'll be like, oh, that right there is a gamble oak acorn shell.
Mm.
That comes into season in October, which means that this bear was here last October. Now I have a potential spot to go to next October if, and this is the hard part, if acorns fruit on that tree. Right. So like just because it's old sign, don't disregard it. You're planning for the future too when you do
Still
that.
plenty of information in that sign.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Is that well, my particular area that I'm well, this area is crazy because and tell me if this is something that also tracks in the West. Um, I noticed a lot of bear scat in the
Hmm.
same area I was scouting for deer, saw tons of deer sign, tracks, scat, whatever, and also tons of turkey. So it's like, you know, kind of like you mentioned, there's drainage over here, drainage over there, and then huge food source. I check, I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, he's eating these berries, and I'm
Hmm.
seeing these berry bushes all along the side of
Yep.
a cornfield, and then
Hmm.
got a few acorns, but very little. Like I could see him on the app, you know,
Hmm.
and yeah, deep in that area, then that's where it gets nasty. So
Hmm.
based off of what you're saying, like if I go over in that area, I'm gonna
Yeah.
find a bear. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And and you can find like, I mean, they'll travel, you know what I mean? Like he might be like living in this nasty spot, but then maybe he like travels up the hill to get to the berries,
Hmm.
right? Like so if you play your cards right, you pay attention, you might be able to find his trail. And they love, like, they're very habitual. They love walking in their same footsteps, those bears, so just, yeah, not, yeah, but you're putting it together. Like,
Yeah, those
you're
thermals
putting
are
it
probably
together.
coming into play because I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I can't tell you elevation's like what, nine something the elevation there. So then it stays pretty cool too, you know what I mean? But definitely those thermals are going to rise, when you get
Hmm.
into the warmer part of the day. And that's something that I'm definitely learning as a hunter is playing that wind correctly, playing those thermals correctly.
Yeah, dude. A good tip that I was given a long time ago about the thermal thing is, and this is really simple, but if you take your windicator, you can see the thermal. Okay, so I want to point out thermal is not wind. Thermal is different from wind. Okay, those are two separate things. All right, so if you hit your puffer bottle and you see the smoke and it goes, away from you and up, the up is the thermal, right? The direction is the wind. Okay, so the reason I bring that up is because you talk about playing the wind. Okay. The bear that I talked to, I've told this story before, but it's a fantastic example of what you're saying.
Hmm.
The bear I talked about that I killed based off of imprints in the pine needles. So when I was first hunting that bear, I had never seen this bear by the way. Didn't see him once until I shot him. Okay. Um, I was setting up on the opposite side of the drainage in like a brush blind, but my wind in the thermals, it was kind of, I believed that they were bedding behind me, but there's a spring in front of me. So I'm like, okay, the wind was in my face. Cool, right? Like that's what you want. You want the wind in your face. That was doing me dirty. Okay, like it was going to where they were. And then when it was doing something different, it was going down the trail. So I thought more about this. I'm like, let me get on the other side of the drainage, up higher. So I go up higher, and sure enough, I had this theory that yes, the wind direction is going to be the same. However, the thermal, because I'm higher, is going to bring my scent over the bears. All right. So I sat up there, and sure enough, I hit my puffer bottle. Smoke went right up. And when it changed directions, it went down down the way to the side of me, parallel to the trail. That bear walked in the first evening I did that, and I shot him at 35 yards.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, so that in my that's playing the wind, right? Like that, it's like, oh wait, yeah, the wind's at my back. Normally that's like you don't want that, right? Well, in this situation you do, right? So yeah, I don't know. Pay attention to that, man. Like thermals,
Oh yeah,
that's like
I'm
playing
learning.
thermals and stuff.
I'm learning. I appreciate that. Well, I'm gonna hit you with one last question before I let you go. And again, I appreciate your time today, stopping in and dropping knowledge on me.
Sure.
Um, so what would be advice you would give to somebody who just breaking into the hunting and the journalism side of things?
Oh, I don't get asked that a lot. That's awesome. Right. I know that sounds really simple. Start a blog, all right, and write. Writing is a muscle, and if you don't work it out, you're not going to get stronger with it. Um, I think a blog is a fantastic option for someone who wants to get into the journalism side of things for hunting, the hunting industry. Um, write about everything, man. Write about your equipment, write about your experiences in the field, whether they're positive or negative. If you felt like this is what I did, man. Like the hard part about getting into all this is there's no blueprint, right? I only know what I know, okay? And it's been a long time, and I'm grateful I get to do what I do. But like when I started, I never had a plan to be in the hunting industry. Like I started a blog with the intention of having an online journal for me to go back and look at, or for my kid to look at, my future kid. I didn't have a kid at that time. My future children to look at to see what dad did when he was younger, right? But as I did it, people read it. I didn't know that. Okay. And then I killed my first bear, and then like an editor got a hold of me and I wrote my first published piece. So and then things snowballed from there. So in the case of someone just starting out, I would say write, write, write. And also I would say try to network with editors. If you want to freelance, right? For magazines, online publications, network with them. Like find I mean it sounds creepy, but you like all these people, you find them on Instagram, find them on social media, like introduce yourself. You know what I mean? You're gonna also like I would write for free. I wrote for free a lot when I first started out. That's part of the game. Okay, you gotta prove your worth, man. I worked a lot for free when I started. Um, because to me it wasn't work. Like I was a roofer. Like writing, that's not work. You know what I mean? Like so for me, like writing was a privilege. So I would write. I would also invest in your knowledge of photography too, to if you want to be in journalism. That there's good writers. There's a lot of I don't want to say there's a lot of good writers, but it's like somebody might be a really good writer, but they're a crap photographer, and that's just a shame. It's just a shame. Like they have this like really well written piece of art with cell phone photos. Like, get out of here, dude. Are you serious? You can't like you can't do that. You can't do like today, especially today, like where
Yeah.
anyone can own like a prosumer camera. Like go like there's plenty of knowledge out there on photography on YouTube and stuff like that. You can learn a lot about how to operate a camera, like operating it on manual. Learn how to do that, by the way. Okay. Everyone's a photographer until you put the camera on manual. Okay. Like that's okay. Like then you're going to learn how to manipulate an image. And the reason I say that is because if you're beautiful, you're proud of what you're doing, you're writing, you write some beautiful piece, don't you would want beautiful photos to go with it. And that is going to help you sell your article more. Okay. Because that helps sell magazines.
The
People
pictures.
don't put crap photos on the front of a magazine.
Hmm.
You know that they want beautiful composition, good color, like a good color grade. You know what I mean? Like so learn how to do that. Um yeah, and just don't stop. That's the other thing. Like people um they'll want to like start writing and stuff like that. And it's very hard to feel like it's worth it, especially when you're not, it's like you're doing this for free. Maybe no editors are getting back to you. Dude, I've emailed when I first started out, man, the amount of cold emails that I have sent to editors that I got no response from. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you. So if I were young in the game, I would take the approach of yes, I'm going to network with editors, but I also want editors to come to me.
Right.
Okay, so you start a blog and give people a reason to read it. Like do what you love, express your passion, and that people find that stuff, you know. If you have a chance to go to another thing like, you know, like you saw me at Hike to Hunt, I love Hike to Hunt, but like I also like seeing everyone and talking to everybody and stuff. Like that's part of it. You got to go out
Yeah.
there. Like that's how you meet people. Is like
Hmm.
if you want to be in the hunting industry, you better be out there talking to people and like so people know who you
Definitely.
are. you
Yeah.
know, instead of being a faceless name, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's ultimately, man, like the question I've always posed to people that, they want to be in the hunting industry, I'm like, listen, you need to, if you can answer this question the right way, you're going to be fine. And the question is, would you be doing this if you weren't getting paid?
All day, every day. Yeah.
Okay. Like seriously, if you would be, because if the answer is yes, that means that you're doing things for the right reasons. The person that like intentionally is like, I've seen it over and over and over again. Okay. The person that's like, I'm gonna be in the hunting industry, right? Like they have like a mission. That's fine. I like chase your dreams. Usually it doesn't work out though. Because they're not like you gotta live it, dude. You really gotta live it. And that right there, that's what I think that's where longevity comes from. Because you don't care. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like you're just doing your thing. And if you're good at it, if you're good at doing what you're doing, you will eventually, oh, here's an editor. Sweet, I'm gonna start writing for him or her, right? And you just kind of build from there, man. You'll get more jobs here and there as things go on, through the years if you just keep on writing. So don't stop because most people do, and then they fall through the cracks.
I appreciate that. Some of the stuff that you mentioned are the exact some same reasons like why I was a little reluctant because like I said, plenty of hunts, no harvest, and,
Sure.
and some were
That's
like
I sorry to cut you off. That's
no, go ahead.
compelling though. Okay, that's real. That is something that people relate to. Okay, and that's like when I started my blog, dude, that's how I was. I never had gotten a deer, nothing. Okay, I killed a javelino when I was like 14 years old or something like that. I wanted to especially coming up in a world where uh I grew up watching hunting shows with my dad. Okay, and you watch this like 24-minute show and like five bucks die, right? And then you go out and you're out for a week and like I didn't even see a buck.
Hmm.
Like what am I doing wrong? Am I a horrible hunter? No, man, it's just how things go. Like that's hunting. So um I think being transparent like that, like you're not trying to be something you're not. You know, the person that hasn't killed it, the thing I have a problem with is the person that hasn't killed anything and then they act like they're like the bee's knees on this.
Yeah,
Okay. Like
yeah,
it's like, no, no, no. You hold on. You need to reel yourself in. Okay. That person's gonna get found out real fast. But if you know, like when I started, I wanted to be as open as possible. I wanted to like share all of my failures and kind of like share the journey of me essentially like learning how to like hunt, you know, and that like people resonate with that, dude. Like they like people will root for you and stuff and like share their opinions on like, oh, I found success doing this and I found success doing that. I messed up doing that too. I had the same thing happen to me, blah, blah, blah. Like that is all really compelling stuff. And I think people latch on to that. So don't let that deter you from doing what you're doing.